Now let's talk about North Korea's arch rival, the United States of America. There's a presidential election next year in the US and Joe Biden is vying for a second term. He doesn't want to leave anything to chance, so he's turning to the Trump playbook. Biden is taking a tougher line against China. He has signed a new executive order. It bans new investments in China's high-tech sector. Americans won't be able to fund projects in China. Biden has a new slogan for investors. He wants them to invest in America.
Instead of exporting American jobs, we're creating American jobs, and we're exporting American products.
So that is Biden's new sales pitch. Sounds a lot like protectionism, but he's hoping this will get him re-elected. The pretext of this executive order is national security. But the fact is, the US doesn't want China to have an edge. He doesn't want China to make better semiconductors or chips, quantum computers, or steal the march in artificial intelligence. So Biden has blocked American funding to these projects. When do these curbs kick in? Next year. And what about previous investments? Well, they won't be impacted. Biden's executive order only applies to future investments. And yet, the current investors might be compelled to change their mind because the US and China are fighting a trade war. If you are an investor in America, putting money on China is risky now. American venture funding has declined dramatically. In the last quarter of 2021, more than $40 billion were invested, 40 billion in one quarter. 2 years later, this number has dropped by more than 50%. In the second quarter of this year, just $10.5 billion were invested. The trade restrictions have had a serious impact. The US already bans or restricts certain exports to China. The curbs were introduced last year. They were targeted at the semiconductor industry. Chip exports were restricted and high-tech chip exports were banned from America to China. Chinese manufacturers were also denied chip design software and manufacturing equipment and related components. So Biden is now going after the money. What does he hope to achieve from this? Besides, of course, blocking China's rise and perhaps an election win, Biden is looking at national security. You see, Washington believes that some technologies can dramatically shift the balance of power. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has a term for this. He calls them, quote-unquote, force multipliers, these technologies, force multipliers. Modern-day innovations fall in this category. There are chips in every electronic device today. They can also be installed in weapon systems. Same with artificial intelligence. The world is worried about the military applications of AI. Last month, the UN Security Council discussed it. The prospect of robot soldiers is scary and not far-fetched anymore. The US is exploring possibilities and so is China. Let me show you something, in fact. In 2021, the Global Times put out this story. It announced that the PLA, the Chinese army, is using artificial intelligence. It hasn't entered the battlefield yet, but the technology is being used in training. The Chinese Air Force used AI in aerial combat training. How does it work? Well, China took the pilot out of the cockpit and let artificial intelligence fly the fighters. There was no dogfight in the air with robots. The PLA ran simulations in cockpits. A real pilot went up against an AI aircraft, and in this instance, the pilot came out on top. The Chinese military hailed the advantages of AI after this. The Global Times reported that such trainings can boost efficiency, reduce cost, and minimize risk. China is studying military applications of artificial intelligence. America wants to slow them down, and they are in a position to do so. You see, China still lacks the know-how. It doesn't know chip design. It still lags behind America in AI. China has bought many high-tech goods from the US. It has relied on American funding to make progress, but now the US is turning off all those taps. Obviously, Beijing does not like it. They've issued a statement. China said it was very disappointed by Joe Biden's orders. It is also hinting at retaliatory measures. We haven't heard the last of this. India's neighbour too had a no-trust vote. This was last year. Opposition parties ganged up to remove Pakistan's then Prime Minister Imran Khan. They succeeded. But Imran Khan was not one to give up. He accused the United States of toppling his government. He went after the army. All of this was dismissed as conspiracy theories, as signs of desperation. But could there be more to these claims? Since August last year, Imran Khan has been talking about a cipher, a secret document. This cipher allegedly had details of a conversation. Between whom? Pakistan's ambassador to the US and senior officials at the US State Department. This claim was also dismissed, but now the alleged cipher has been leaked. Someone in the Pakistani military leaked it to the US media. And what does it say? What Imran Khan has been saying all along. The story begins on March 7th, 2022. State Department officials had a conversation with Pakistan's ambassador. This man, Asad Majid Khan. Here's what the Americans allegedly said. I think if the no confidence vote against Prime Minister succeeds, all will be forgiven in Washington. Otherwise, I think it would be tough going ahead. Some context now. Why did the Americans want Imran Khan out? Apparently because he was neutral on Ukraine. Under Imran Khan, Pakistan refused to condemn Russia's war. He said Pakistan is not Europe's slave. In fact, Imran Khan was on a trip to Moscow when the war began. Washington saw this as an affront, a sign that Imran Khan would side with Moscow. Is that why they plotted to remove him? The timing is certainly suspect. 1 month after the cipher was delivered, Imran Khan was ousted. Plus, toppling regimes is not exactly new for America. They're more than capable of it. But a couple of questions still remain. Number one, what did Washington gain from this alleged regime change? Not very much on paper. In February this year, the West moved a UN resolution against Russia. It criticized Moscow's land grabs. 32 countries abstained. 32 countries, including Pakistan. And remember, this was not Imran Khan. This was a new government under Shehbaz Sharif in Pakistan. Also, Pakistan is buying oil from Russia. The first shipment arrived in June. It was carrying around 45,000 tons of crude. So where exactly is the upside? There are reports of Pakistan sending weapons to Ukraine, but these are shadow shipments, negligible compared to NATO's multi-billion-dollar aid. So that's one problem with the cipher claim. The second one is the timing. Pakistan's parliament dissolved today. The stage is set for the general election. But as things stand, Imran Khan won't be contesting. He's been convicted and jailed in a corruption case. So by extension, he cannot contest. In the middle of all of this chaos, the cipher gets leaked. Sounds convenient, doesn't it? Right on time to vindicate Imran Khan. Now, I'm not saying the cipher is fake or that America is not capable of doing all of this. I'm saying there are too many loose ends here. If the US was still involved in Afghanistan, this would have made more sense. Pakistan is a direct player there in Afghanistan, so a friendly regime in Islamabad would be helpful. But for Ukraine, it seems a bit far-fetched. Why then does the cipher controversy refuse to die? Because of an old saying, there is no smoke without fire. Listen to the US response and you will see why.
Even if those comments were accurate as reported, they in no way show the United States taking a position on who the leader of Pakistan ought to be. We expressed concern privately to the government of Pakistan, as we expressed concern publicly about the visit of then Prime Minister Khan to Moscow on the very day of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We made that concern quite clear, but as the former Pakistani ambassador to the United States himself has stated, the allegations that the United States has interfered in internal decisions about the leadership of Pakistan are false. As we've stated, they're false. They've always been false, and they remain false.
That's a pretty defensive statement. The US says we can't talk about private diplomatic chats. Fair enough. But the spokesperson adds a rider. He says, even if the cipher is real, we did not say who should be Pakistan's leader. Well, that's the money quote. Maybe the State Department did not say who the leader should be, but they did say who the leader should not be. Pakistan's position on the cipher is also ambiguous. They have neither accepted nor rejected it. Islamabad has simply ignored it, as if the conversation never happened. So in conclusion, let me say this. A few things are definitely not adding up here. The US would have certainly liked to see Imran Khan out, but would they have actively pushed for it? That is the real question. And if they did, why go through the ambassador? Why not use more covert means? I'm sure the CIA has a back channel with the army. Wouldn't that have been safer? No cipher business, just good old American meddling. The fact is, Imran Khan was always going to be ousted. America was not his biggest enemy. The Pakistani army was. So maybe this was a classic case of interests aligning, a happy coincidence. Or maybe it's all a bunch of conspiracies. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, you can never know. What makes a good politician? Policies, yes. Oratory, yes. But what about looks? For the longest time, leaders were supposed to look ordinary, like an average Joe. But that's not the case anymore. Today's politicians are splurging on hair and makeup, and the bills are eye-wateringly big. Germany has released some numbers. Their government has spent $68,000 on Chancellor Olaf Scholz's hair and makeup. $68,000, that's around 56 lakh Indian rupees on hair and makeup. We have 4 months left in this year, so expect that bill to increase even more. Now, hair and makeup is just one part of it. The total expenditure is much higher, around $1.6 million in 2022. Imagine that, $1.6 million for makeup, hairdressers and photographers. Now, before you ask, this is for the entire German government, not just Olaf Scholz. But still, it's a big number. Even Angela Merkel's makeup bill is borne by the government. She retired from politics in 2021. Since then, guess how much money Germany has spent on her makeup? Around $60,000. Private events, public events, it doesn't matter. The German government picked up the tab. What do the people make of this? The German Taxpayers Association has criticized the bills. They said it should be at a bare minimum, and yet nothing has changed. In fact, the bills are rising even more. The German government's makeup bill was 80% higher in 2022, 80% higher in 2022 compared to 2021. And Germany is not alone in this trend. World leaders apparently love their makeup. French President Emmanuel Macron is one example. He was elected to office in 2017. In the first 3 months, listen to this, he spent $30,000 on his makeup. That's around 19 lakh rupees in 3 months. So the next time you see Macron's youthful, wrinkle-free face, remember this, it costs $30,000. The whole thing triggered a backlash. Macron ended up promising to cut his makeup budget. His predecessor spent even more. That's François Hollande. He used to pay his hairdresser $10,000 per month. It's bad enough for most people. Even worse if you're a socialist leader. Donald Trump did something similar. He spent around $10,000 for makeup for his inauguration. But I must say, Trump got a better deal. He got makeup for himself and 20 of his aides. Ireland too had a makeup-savvy leader, Bertie Ahern. He was Prime Minister from 1997 to 2008. His makeup bill was released in 2006, around $100,000 for 4 years. In fact, Bertie Ahern was called the L'Oreal Prime Minister. We tried to find numbers in India as well. I'm sure you're thinking about those. Unfortunately, there is no public record. But the bigger question is this: why do leaders do this? Why do they spend tens of thousands of dollars on makeup? I'm sure the reasons are different for everyone, but press coverage is a common one. You have high-definition cameras following you. They can capture everything, a wrinkle on your face, a strand of gray hair, a pimple, all of it. So makeup is the only way to appear perfect, to look youthful on television. If you don't, the cameras will spot it. Look at what happened with Joe Biden earlier this year. People noticed some odd marks on his face, and immediately questions were raised. The White House had to clarify that the president uses a sleep apnea machine. Maybe Biden needed a makeup artist to cover it up. And let's be clear here, makeup is not the problem. People are free to use cosmetic products or employ hairdressers. It's their choice. The problem is, who pays for it? It's one thing to pay for a leader's motorcade or housing. It's another to pay for their makeup, especially when the bills are so high. In the US, women spend around $15,000 on makeup. That's over a lifetime. $15,000 in Indian money, it's around 12 lakh rupees. But some world leaders are spending as much in months. So clearly, it is excessive. We do need active and caring politicians. For that, taxpayers will pick up the tab. But if they want to splurge on looks, I'm afraid it's BYOM, bring your own makeup. "10,000 steps a day." It's touted as the minimum for good health. It has long become a default fitness goal, so much so that it birthed a whole industry. An industry worth about $20 billion. It's filled with fitness trackers, smartphone apps, even wellness programs. But do you follow this number religiously? Do you walk 10,000 steps every day? Probably not. How do we know? Because we have the numbers. Indians typically walk around 4,300 steps in a day. Americans 4,800 steps. The Japanese take 7,000 steps. Australians and Swiss nationals come close. They take some 9,000 steps. This is the average. So chances are you're not clocking in 10,000 steps every day. But there is no need to feel discouraged. I'll let you in on a secret. 10,000 steps is a myth. The number to stay healthy is far lower than that. Let alone half of 10,000, even 2,000 steps are good for you. But if that's the case, why is the world being told otherwise? Blame murky historical roots. Let's take you back to the year 1965. That's when a Japanese company launched a pedometer. You know the instrument that records the number of steps taken? It estimates the distance traveled on foot. This Japanese pedometer was called 10,000 step meter. It also came with a slogan, let's walk 10,000 steps a day. What fun. And hence we had the magic number, 10,000 steps. It became trendy. It gave people a distant, sweaty goal, the goal of a fit and healthy body. It became part of everyday conversations, even corporate team building exercises. But you see, this goal is not based in a scientific study. It originated in marketing, not medicine. So what does medicine say? How many steps should you walk in a day? A new global study is out now. It was conducted by the Medical University of Lords and the Johns Hopkins University. It shows that 2 to 5,000 steps, in fact, are beneficial. About 2,300 steps is enough to benefit the heart and blood vessels. At 4,000 steps, the risk of dying prematurely of any cause starts reducing. And with every extra 1,000 steps after 4,000, the risk of dying early reduces by 15%. So basically, there is no one number. The more you walk, the more health benefits you get. This applies to people of all genders, ages, and countries. Such betrayal, right? All this time, people were beating themselves up for walking lesser than 10,000 steps. Some say they don't even bother going for a walk, assuming they won't reach the magic number, so what's the point? But with this study, it's clear that there is a point. Walking 10,000 steps definitely helps, but so does every little bit of walking. It's about small snippets of movement throughout the day, like walking from one room to another or getting up from your desk to get coffee. They all add up to make a difference. Let me show you how. Walking lowers blood pressure, strengthens muscles, protects bones, increases energy levels, boosts happy hormones like endorphins, and this benefits mental health. The best part is, walking is for everyone because it is low impact and easy on the joints. But walking is not the only light exercise that helps. I'm talking about non-exercise activities, meaning simple tasks that use energy, like carrying shopping bags, washing the floor, pacing while talking on the phone. It's ironic, but think of exercising as eating your favorite food. Even a little is good. But more is always better. After all, insufficient physical activity is responsible for more than 3 million deaths every year. It's the 4th most frequent cause of death worldwide, not enough physical activity. It increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and several cancers. And yet people do not exercise enough, and the numbers agree. 1 in 4 adults and 4 out of 5 adolescents do not get enough physical activity. Now, exercising may seem daunting. There is rarely enough time or energy to get started, but remember that good health can be a sum of the small movements. Movement in any form should not be underestimated. So set a goal that works for you. Find your own sweet spot of step count, or throw out your tracker entirely, but just get moving. And now it's time for Vantage Charts, images that tell the story. We're starting with the United States. Tourists' paradise Hawaii has become their nightmare. Massive wildfires have broken out. The historic town of Lahaina has been completely devastated. At least 36 people have been killed. Some jumped into the ocean to escape the wildfire. Meanwhile, Formula One world champion Max Verstappen has picked up some new driving tricks. And the United Kingdom had this. A baby elephant rolled in the grass and spent some quality time with its mother. Finally, what makes the 10th of August significant? On this day in 1962, Marvel Comics superhero Spider-Man made his debut. He appeared in the comic book called Amazing Fantasy. This was when Peter Parker came into our lives as a shy and nerdy high school student who secretly fought bad guys. Youngsters loved it. And the rest, as they say, is history. We're leaving you with that. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
This was a home